Split Tube Media and the Cinesthesia podcast present a special daily October podcast. Help to the gang.
Week 3, day 3, no end in sight, lost contact with base camp, which is what I call my hippocampus. Jim, are you there? Are you reading me? You still there?
Jason, I've been debating whether or not I should come back for this episode. So I was thinking, I've heard that sometimes you don't have to.
It is implied that if sometimes they do come back, sometimes...
Yeah. Sometimes they must
you
not.
Just don't.
Right? And
presumably most times you just don't.
I thought I could take that as an out, maybe.
Yeah. Do you want to just not do this?
Yeah.
According to this movie, though, the alternative is that we have to die.
I might take that.
Yeah.
How many more days do we have?
Many.
Yeah,
we're
Jason, let's just die.
We are more than halfway through.
We're
through the halfway point. It's hard to pinpoint an exact halfway point because there's an odd number of days, but we're past it.
What is the number of days, Jason? What's so odd about it?
Well, it ends with a 1.
It's Screbenty Frime. What an odd number.
The 11 Glock of October. We're here. We're here for you, the listener. We're here to keep on talking about Stephen King movies and TV shows and T-shirts and nipple rings, tattoos. Stephen King
tattoos of nipple rings,
yeah.
Tattoos of T-shirts,
tattoos on Stephen King, tattoos taken off of Stephen King,
framed, hung on your wall.
Stephen King's nipples. We cover it all. We cover it all here. We're tattoos a full service podcast.
King's nipples.
No, this is day 17. This is day 17. We're well into week 3. We are
2/3
technically still alive. It's not 2/3.
I mean, I know.
Yet,
I know that.
But by the end of this week, it will be.
Yeah,
by the end of this week,
it'll
be 3/4, kind of, almost.
This week's not ending.
This week will eventually end.
This
one way or another.
Longest October.
If you live through to see, the sunrise on another Sunday, or if you just have an embolism and everything goes dark on Thursday night, the week has still ended for you.
Yeah. Okay.
Either way,
good. I take that as comfort.
Yeah. We're gonna get there, buddy. We're gonna get there, buddy.
Yeah.
Hey, Jim.
We're gonna make it to the other. Yeah.
Hey, Jim, did you watch a movie today?
I honestly can't remember.
How often do you watch movies these days?
These days, I would say I watch 1.2 a day.
What was did you watch a whole movie today? Did you watch one?
I did, Jason.
Jim, did you look at a movie?
I did look at. I looked at it until it ended. Jason.
Did it end like an embolism, going dark on a Thursday night?
It intended exactly. Yes. Yes, Jason.
What movie was it?
Sometimes, Jason, they come back. That's the full name.
Was it good?
What do you mean by good, Jason? There are some things in this movie,
Like things are visible.
Yeah, you see stuff when you watch it. I'll tell you what, Jason. You go into this movie, and when you come out the other side, you are 97 minutes older. That's a service this film offers you.
More if you watched it in its television release with commercials.
Oh, wait, was this a TV movie?
This was a TV movie, I think.
Interesting.
I think it was.
I didn't realize that. This is another Dino movie, Jason.
It is another Dino movie.
I'm curious what drove Dino De Laurentiis to think that this would be a movie.
Well, I think it was a thing he had the rights to, and it had
right.
Stephen King's name on it.
You're right. I'm definitely overestimating Dino De Laurentiis' artistic process. Rights holding is definitely a large portion.
Yeah, like he could make it and didn't have to spend that much money on it, and
why
would
didn't
then get
he
paid
pay
for
someone to butcher the script? This is a movie where you could take the good bits from it and just slice it up and make up a bunch of other nonsense and have a pretty decent movie. You know, there's the greasers that inexplicably come back as angry ghosts. 2 of them are real cool, and their car is real cool. The main character has interesting facets, right? He's a guy who maybe grew up in this town and then moved away and had some kind of life where he did terrible things that we never learn about, and then he comes back to be a high school teacher and is just angry and horrible to his students.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
There are glimpses of movies that could be in this film.
Yeah.
And scenes that are okay. So the movie, we have, I guess, technically an audience. I could let them know what this movie is. The movie, sometimes they came back. It was a TV movie, and it follows a man whose name I can't even remember now, but he's played by Tim Matheson, as he moves back to his hometown in Maine. Surprise!
What?
He's a high school teacher, and he had some sort of incident in Chicago. They call it a Chicago type incident.
It's like the noodle incident in Calvin and Hobbes.
Yeah, it's never
only
explained.
referred to as a thing.
But for some reason, the only place he can get a job is in his hometown.
Yes.
But he hates his hometown because his hometown is where his older brother was inexplicably murdered by 50s-style greasers in a train tunnel.
Was it his older brother or his younger brother?
His older brother. He was the younger brother.
Oh, wow. They showed us that scene 15 times, and I somehow never fully absorbed it.
No, it was his older brother who was like the smart, good, strong one who could do everything, and he was the younger, screw-up brother who wanted to tag along with his brother, and then they go into the train tunnel, and then a bunch of greasers with stuff in their hair and fire on the side of their cars drive in, and they're like, try to steal his library fee money, and then they stab him
for no reason.
And then a train hits them and kills them all, and Tim Matheson is the only one who survives.
This is another thing we've seen in a few King movies, Jason, is bullies that are just off the rails, murderous assholes.
All of them have super 50s hair, too, even when they're not in the 50s.
Yeah, when they come back in the future, they're still greasers. They're still 100% greasers.
Yeah. It's definitely a real strong King type. Is like the sociopathic, sometimes teenager, sometimes just slightly older than teenager, but still picking on teenagers.
Yes.
Like dude in rolled up shirt sleeves or a leather jacket with a switchblade.
Yeah. And Jason, I think it's worth noting they drive a cool car because King loves cool cars.
They do drive a cool car, and that car is cool. So then
it is real cool.
And so one of the things that's great about this movie is that there is a cool ghost car with dead greasers in it driving around killing people. Because what happens is after Tim Matheson moves back to his hometown, the ghosts of the guys who killed his brother start showing up one by one. His students start dying.
But only when people die. A person has to die for one of them to come back.
Well, yeah, that rule is put forth later. But at first it's just like they kill one of his students, and then one of them shows up in that student's place in the class.
Yeah.
And then they kill another one of his students, and another one shows up, and like they're slowly just getting all of them together in his class, and then they're gonna finish what they started that night. Because they blame him for them getting hit by a train.
Reason.
Well, he does. So in the flashback of when they kill his brother, like sort of by accident, but also they're being like raging, monstrous criminals with a knife at a child's chest. So how much of an accident can it be?
In a train tunnel.
Yeah. It might technically physically have not been like an act of volition at the moment, but everything leading up to it sure was.
They chased a kid into a train tunnel with knives.
But then the Tim Matheson little kid steals their keys and runs away, so they all get in their car to drive away from the train, but they can't start it because he stole the keys, and then the train hits the car and kills them. So they blame him for their untimely death.
But, I mean, they got in that car.
Yeah. Look, I'm not saying they're right. I'm not taking their side.
I'm just saying, Jason, it feels like you think the ghosts are the protagonists.
Well, that might
They're
be because
definitely
they're the
meant
coolest.
to be mean. They are the most interesting part of the movie.
And, I like Tim Matheson pretty well.
Sure.
But he's not as cool as those dudes.
He's way less cool than those dudes. Except the short guy. That short guy, not cool at all.
Yeah, the short guy's kind of funny.
Not because he's short. I'm a short man myself. I'm not taking a swing
same.
at short guys.
I
Just
got short
the one
legs.
short guy. But torso, 6 feet long.
Jim, this is another Stephen King movie in which I've had to watch a young child die.
Yes. And I'm sorry. But Jason, the moral of this movie, I don't know if you picked up on it, it's a little subtle, is that sometimes they come back. So this, you don't have to worry about this kid. This one's fine.
There's only so much more I can take, Jim. And it's going to happen again.
This is a runner,
And it's
Jason.
going to happen
Stephen
a
King
lot.
loves horrible bullies, gangs of boys, psychics, and murdering children. And cool cars.
Yeah, okay.
You brought this on yourself.
I did. It's true. This was my idea. You should have stopped me. I blame you. I'm like, this is why I take the greaser side.
like the
I brought
bullies.
this on
Yeah.
myself, but you stole my keys.
You're the one who got in a car on the train tracks while the train was rushing at it.
This movie has a few moves, and there's some fun bits occasionally, but mostly it drags. And is a TV movie.
Yeah. There's a good... When he first shows up in his classroom and is horrible, and then there's a bunch of jocks led by one particular jock, and
the chipster.
The chipster! And they push him to give them good grades, even though they're not going to bother to take his class, and then the administration backs them up. That seems insane.
Well, you've never lived in a football town.
I do now, but I never lived in one as a child. I don't know. That which is like mildly interesting, but it doesn't really do a ton with it until that one football player hangs out with the greasers and then has that super apologetic scene where he shows up at the teacher's house and he's like, they're real bad guys. I just am a jerk.
Yeah, I actually thought that was kind of a nice beat because they set it up with that guy Chip, the chipster, like the lead jock. They set him up as like
king
the
shit of the classroom.
Most cartoonishly unlikable, douchey, jock, like asshole. Side note: when he first stood up in class in that first scene to like assert his dominance,
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Talking about making fun of the teacher and taking control of it. His baseball cap was hanging on his belt or on his pants, I guess, right over his crotch.
Yes.
Which, first of all, is insane. I've never seen anybody do that.
No one has ever worn a hat like that.
Not a place you keep a baseball cap. But
because it looks like you're hiding your penis.
Well, I at first thought that what he had done as like an alpha male, like gorilla move was to stuff his hat down into his pants and pull it out his zipper. And so he was just standing there with a baseball cap like hanging out of his zipper while he was making fun of the teacher, and I thought that was a baller move. And for a moment I was like, maybe I need to learn from this guy like some life lessons of how to be. But then I realized they were just hanging on his belt, and that makes no sense.
I was sure that he was either hiding a boner and was going to stand up and be embarrassed and leave the classroom, or had in an alpha silverback way pulled his penis out through his zipper and was going to lift up the hat and flash the teacher his penis, which if I'd known it was a TV movie I would have understood that was not what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And it doesn't happen.
No, none of those. He just wears his hat in an insane place.
Yeah.
Other side note about Chip.
Some wardrobe person was like out of touch with the youth is what happened.
I'd like to think that was specifically written in the short story, like it was a Stephen King flourish. He was the kind of kid
really
who wore his
about it.
baseball cap on his belt.
Yeah, because Stephen King saw one dude do that in 1959 and thought he was so cool.
Yeah. The only other side note about Chip is that I watched this movie on YouTube, and I had to have the subtitles on for a while because there were loud sounds happening. And the YouTube subtitles changed Chip's name to Tiff. as in Toronto International Film Festival. So for a while, it looks like Tim Matheson is arguing with the Toronto International Film Festival.
That's pretty delightful.
Which is pretty charming.
That's how I feel whenever I submit a film places.
I did really like the beat where he starts off as
midnighter.
Total asshole.
My classroom.
He starts off as this total cartoonish asshole, but then when like real demon ghosts show up and he starts to like make fun of the teacher, and they're like, "Yeah, we're gonna kill him." He's like, "Oh shit, no, I'm just a dumb kid, like pretending to do this to make myself feel important." And then he goes to the teacher. He's like, they're really dangerous, and I don't know what to do." I was like,
it's maybe
really
the most poignant beat in the whole movie.
Yeah.
That one kid is just immediately and irrevocably humbled.
Yeah, and the fact that they could make me turn around and feel sympathy for this character who before that was like the most unlikable possible character. I thought that was actually sort of impressive.
That's a nice beat. And then there's just a bunch of dumb greasers trying to murder a 30-year-old guy.
Yeah, and like sometimes it's fun. Like they like take out a zombie face to scare people, and they're like, "Look at me, I'm a corpse."
Yeah, that's true. I forgot. Like, sometimes they're dead people, and sometimes they're greasers.
Yeah.
And that's nice that they can flip back and forth.
There's a lot of rules to how people can come back or can't come back that I found completely convoluted and baffling.
Well, here's the thing, Jason. It sums it up in the title. It's the title of the movie is "Don't Bother to Think About the Rules." the title of this movie, sometimes they come back. Shut up about it, okay? I'm going to bring them back if I need to for the plot, the movie.
He even has a scene where he talks to the old cop, and the cop's like, sometimes they do this, and sometimes they come back. What are you going to do about it? It really is.
And he's saying that directly to you, the audience.
Yeah, it's like, don't think about this too hard. Like, sometimes they come back, and this is what happens when it does.
It's supernatural. Who knows? I don't know.
But they start talking about the rules, and the one that baffled me the most is when he starts to track down the one greaser that lived.
Yes.
Because then, so Tim Matheson's looking for this guy named Mueller, and he's standing in a graveyard, and then the greasers show up, and they're like, "You better hope you find him before we find him, because that's he's part of the whole plan, or this is the whole thing coming down." And you're like, "Wait, what? Why do you need him? Like, what?" And it's never explained.
And he never matters in any way, does he?
Well, no, he matters, but he matters in the exact opposite. So, like, Tim Matheson finds him, and first of all, the old guy, old greaser Mueller, is played by the great William Sanderson. So it's a
character actor hero, William Sanderson.
Wonderful dude, and he's like perfect at playing the like completely spineless, like terrified blob of a man who's just like, "I don't know. I don't know what you're gonna do. I can't do anything to help you. Why am I coming with you?" But then he heroically sacrifices himself in the tunnel to bring back the older brother to fight the greasers. Right. So like they're trying to find, maybe it's like whoever Mueller decides to die for, they get to bring somebody
he's
back.
He's just so spineless as an old man that whoever finds him first is going to be like, make a sacrifice. And he'll be like, "Oh, I guess." Yeah,
it made no sense whatsoever. But again, like, and I don't care that much, except they started talking about the rules. And so I'm like, well, what are the rules?
Yeah. The rules, Jason, are that sometimes they come back.
But I also like that the greasers themselves are super dum-dums. And
full-on idiots.
Even when they do start talking about the rules or having plans, they very quickly get distracted just by, like, wanting to hit the other one in the penis or, like, make a joke. Yes. There's that one scene where the older brother's trying to break through into the real world, and they stop, and they're like, "Well, did you feel that? Somebody's trying to come through." And one of them goes, "It's probably your mother." And then they just start hitting each other.
I would watch a full feature about horrible demons that are all idiots who can't get things done because they're distracted.
Yeah, it would be great.
If that was the central piece of the movie, I would watch that for 2 hours.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. But again, we're in the. I will say, I thought that at this point we'd be in the doldrums of just terrible movies, but instead we're in the doldrums of movies that are fine.
They're fine.
I did,
And
if I was watching this for any other reason and it was just on late at night, I'd be like, oh, it was kind of fun. But because
Agreed.
I'm just mainlining through
There's
these, I'm
nice
like,
effects.
okay, this is fine. There's some nice
There's some
moments,
funny
but I'd like to
bits.
get to the end of it.
Yeah. Yeah, if I weren't doing a movie a day, if I weren't doing this with a purpose, this is a movie that if I was at a party, I don't know what party this is, and somebody had it on VHS and we were all watching it, I would probably be delighted.
Yeah, sure. Although I will say, like, the whole, they do this thing where, because it's his students that are dying and because Tim Matheson has this mysterious past, everybody, of course, starts to suspect that he's the one who's killing them. And, of course, one of the gimmicks in the film is that only Tim Matheson and people who are being targeted and attacked by the ghosts can see the ghosts. They're invisible to everybody else.
Sometimes.
Like, during the attacks, right. So, like, they're like invisible when they want to be, but I guess he can always see them, and you can always see them if they're trying to kill you. Again,
when they
murky
first come
rules.
back, Jason, it's sort of established that he's the only one who's seeing them, and then they show up in his classroom, and that one sort of gothy girl can see them, and I was like, wait, why? What is happening? And then later they were like, oh no, everyone can see them when they're in the classroom for some reason.
Yeah.
But there was a minute there where I thought maybe she was also tied in somehow, but no, I don't know.
Well, because also they somehow they kill. I just realized another way the rules don't work, because somebody has to die for somebody to come back.
Yeah.
But they kill that first kid with
Without
their
being
car.
there. Yeah.
So that the one guy can come back. But I guess maybe they're like not all the way back or something.
Maybe
I don't
Sanderson
know how.
killed him with the car.
Yeah, maybe to come back that means they get to be fully alive, and that's why they're like corpses sometimes. But again, murky rules, never explained.
Yeah. No.
But the thing they do that is really clear is they do this like wrong man plot for a little while, where everybody's suspecting Tim Matheson and he can't convince anything because nobody can see it but him, and that shit annoys me to no end. Because it's such a bore, but it also produces just extreme involuntary anxiety in me as a plot device, even while being bored by it. So it's the worst of both worlds. I'm sitting there being like, this is dumb and boring, but also I really want somebody to believe him.
Well, you're lucky, Jason, because in this movie, they start that plot and then 4 minutes later end it.
Yeah. And they end it in the funniest way because you think that it's going to actually like bring it to a close because the police take him down to the station and keep him there all night, during which one of his students disappears. Yes. So then after they release him, then they come and find him later and go, turns out you were right. One of your students did disappear last night while you were in lockup all night. If you remember anything about it, let me know. And then they walk away. It's like, what do you mean remember anything about it? You were literally with him all night.
You've just exonerated him. Why are you still being... Yeah.
It's a dumb movie. But, it's not bad. Like, the cast is pretty good. The guys playing the greasers are good. The lead one, I forget his name, but he was in a bunch of episodes of Babylon 5, so I have fond memories of him.
Sure.
Tim Matheson is Tim Matheson. I've always liked Tim Matheson pretty well. His wife is Brooke Adams, who's pretty good. Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
She's done better work. She's been given better roles.
She didn't have a lot to work with here.
Yeah.
But it is what it is.
It is what it is.
Yeah. Tim Matheson's one of those guys you always think maybe should have had like a bigger career. But also, I can sort of see why he didn't. Like, I always like him, and he's kind of in that mold of like a Harrison Ford kind of guy, of like a handsome guy who can also do flustered and angry really well, which is to me the key of Harrison Ford. But there's always this element, and I don't know anything about Tim Matheson's life. I might just be making things up, but there's this element of like silver spoonery around him, like maybe he went to a really good school, and like maybe he didn't, and I'm being an asshole, but it always feels like Tim Matheson is the Yale version of Harrison Ford, and Harrison Ford is the Carpenter version, who's like the towny version, and that's the one you want to watch more.
I absolutely agree.
I don't know. That's all I pretty much got on Sometimes They Come Back. Sometimes they do, turns out, and then you gotta
kill him again.
You gotta kill him again with the same train.
Yeah.
In the original story, in the movie, he gets his older brother back as a ghost to fight them, which again is never really explained. In the original story, he has to like summon a demon, and the demon takes the shape of his brother to fuck with him, and then kills the... Again, this is running thing of, like, we're doing all of this about Stephen King, but most of these movies are way worse than the actual Stephen King stories that they're based on.
I don't know if that's true. A lot of them are different. I don't know if most of them are way worse.
I feel like every time we bring them up, we're like, oh, that's a stronger choice.
I feel like that's only happened 3 times.
Well, Jim, the thing about doing a podcast is that it's all recorded, so we can go back and check.
Yeah, someone go back and check.
Yeah, somebody else. I don't want to do it.
Someone tell me how right or wrong I am. That works better for me, Jason, is for him to be summoning a demon, because for me, it feels like the bullies are working on ghost rules where they have died and they have a vendetta that they need to achieve. And so they've, it's like, in general, when you're in typical ghost lore, it's like you die and you're like, oh, I have a thing I still need to do, and then you're stuck in purgatory until whatever, until sometimes you come back, and then you do the thing you wanted to do.
Sometimes you don't, and you're just stuck in purgatory, I guess.
But the little brother, I don't buy that he would have had a reason to get stuck in purgatory in the first place, because he's just a kid that dies. I don't, the other dudes die with vengeance in their hearts, and that kid is just a kid that dies. But for me, it being a demon feels like a much stronger.
I mean, I agree. It's a much stronger choice, because then it also, like, part of the problem with this movie is that Tim Matheson starts off pretty guilty, but then they kind of whitewash him and he becomes very innocent by the end of it. Yeah. And it's much more interesting to me, if there's a lot more guilt to go around. If he
summons a demon?
I feel like the movie is positing that the brother was in purgatory specifically because he was going to have to come help Tim Matheson in the future. It's like a fate thing. It's like time is a flat circle kind of deal.
But I don't know what that means. But he wouldn't have any knowledge of that, Jason. He's a kid who's hit by a train.
Well, he's not making choices. The universe is keeping him in purgatory. He can't move on until this thing is done that he's destined to do. Either that, or the greaser's anger, because it prevents them from going through, it creates this situation where, because he's tied to that event, until that event is resolved, none of them can pass on.
I think you're reading ghost lore in a much more cosmic way than I am, I think, because I've always read it as sort of it's like a very humanistic force of will, that it's just your sheer ego forces you into this in-between space, where it's your desire to finish doing a thing that you feel like you were meant to do. And so for that read, for just the way, and maybe that's a misunderstanding on my end of how ghosts work, but I've always thought that it had to be your own personal drive that put you into ghost territory.
I think it's how a lot of ghosts work. I think it's how ghosts that haunt people work, and ghosts that are like negative to neutral ghosts tend to work that way. But there's also a strong tradition in lore of, like, spirits who have to help the living that they've left behind, like they're destined to do something for them. And so I feel like it's sort of intermixing different ghost lore reasons. Again, it's all murky mythology and murky rules, and it doesn't ever add up to like a thing you can figure out. It's just sometimes they come back.
Sometimes they come back.
But like when he talks to the old cop, the cop says,
I know, I saw him. Saw who? Your brother Wayne. He needs you to settle it. Wait. There was this routine burglary. Routine, except that I got shot in the head. The doctors said I was clinically dead for over 3 minutes. And that's when I saw him, Wayne, on the other side. He was waiting, stuck in that mid-realm, that dimension between here and one's final destination. Sometimes, son, they're in our hearts. Sometimes they're in our thoughts. But if they're unhappy enough, if something's left unsettled, sometimes they come back.
So, like, that was a weird moment, because it's like, oh, wait, this is all about the brother. Like, this is about getting the brother into heaven. This isn't the Tim Matheson's story is almost incidental to the fact that his brother's been in purgatory since he was accidental stabbed by a greaser.
See, now, I think I'm just fully riffing now, but I would love a version of this that's from the brother's perspective, where the brother has to set in motion whatever causes the bullies to come back to try to murder his brother so that his brother will bring him back so that he can get to heaven. That's a beautiful hero arc.
Yes, when you first said that, I thought you meant from the brother's perspective as this film portrays it, which would just be a child sitting in limbo for 20 years and then coming out in a train tunnel and being confused.
I mean, I would also watch that movie. 70 minutes of a kid alone in a white room.
All right. I guess that's sort of how I feel.
Yep.
Right now. We're embodying Stephen King right now. We're just pitching ideas that are describing what we're going through personally.
It's true. I'm just hoping that a portal door will open up and take me to a train station where I don't know what's happening. That feels like an appropriate escape. That
seems like a better option. This has been another moment in our purgatory. And sometimes we come back, sometimes being every day.
Do you think the audience can hear how sweaty I am?
I think that it's assumed that we're both... I just imagine the audience's imagination of us as Philip Seymour Hoffman and happiness. We're just like... We're soft and pale, and we're in rooms by ourselves, and we're not very washed.
No. Do you think people know, Jason, that we, every time we do an episode of this, rent 2 subsequent rooms in a motel and sit back to back with a wall between us? Do you think they can
Well,
tell?
they do now, Jim. You've let it out.
No! Don't come to the Motel 6 on Route 85 while we're recording.
All right, I'll talk to you tomorrow, bud. This has been an episode. I send these into Split Tooth now, and I'm just waiting for the email to come back and say, you know what, we don't need any more of these. But I think
you guys
exhausted.
You had a really good run.
I know. We said that we were excited for you to do the whole month, but I think we're good.
I think what we were excited about is the experiment, and I think that it's happened.
I think we have the results.
Yeah.
We have the results, and we don't want any more of them. Everybody just queue up the next Stephen King movie, and then just talk to yourselves in our voices.
Yeah.
All of you at the same time.
Please.
And we'll draw power from it at a distance. Mm-hmm. Everything will be fine. Don't worry about it. Don't think about it too hard. Just do it.
Just do it. Just do it without thinking.
Just do it. Just do it. Do it now. Just do it.
Just do it.
Become us. Become us.
Become us. Use our voices.
Hell to the King is a special presentation of the Cinesthesia podcast, produced by Iguana Donald Studios, and distributed by Split Tooth Media. Music by Loyalty Freak. Hell to the King is recorded before a hive of studious naughty ants.
And so he was just standing there with a baseball cap like hanging out of his zipper while he was making fun of the teacher, and I thought that was a baller move.